morning! Happy quilters! Welcome to another edition of Quilting Quickies here at Pine Needles Quilt and Sew. Today I'm excited to talk about two rulers from Nifty Notions that we have. One of them is the bias triangle and the other one is called the half rectangle. Together, these two blocks make something that back in my grandmother's day they called the peaky and spike block. You can call it that. There's 24 and fight. There's many names for this block, but what it makes is a wonderful star, a pointed star with 8 points. A lot of people are afraid to do this because they think it's difficult. It really is not if you have the right tools and know what you're doing. All right, we're going to learn how to make this star block, and we're going to start with 4.5-inch strips. So we have a light and a dark here. Everything in this entire table topper or wall hanging is made with 4.5-inch strips. How much easier can it get? So we have two rulers. One of them is going to be for the peak part, which is the center part here, and the spike will go on here. Now you can see that we have one center and two spikes. So for our spikes that we're going to do out of the lighter color, or you can do them reverse, whatever you want, we just have to make sure that we have a piece with right sides together, because you see we need two of these, and if you had cut them all from the same piece you wouldn't have a matching set. So to cut these, we're simply once again have to be able to read Nifty Notions as you place it in front of you, right sides together. You're going to place the ruler on the strip of fabric with the 4.5-inch line at the bottom and the blunt tip at the top. And we're simply going to cut. Now there's something different about this ruler in that up here we have another little place where we have to cut off that little tip. Now you might think that doesn't seem important. It really is when you go to sew, because you're not going to have to use any pins, and I'm going to show you why. So we have to make one more little cut here and cut off this tiny little triangle at the top. And then what we're going to do is just simply turn our ruler over like this, so we're not going to waste any fabric here. And we're going to cut again and again. Now it's down here, this little tiny triangle that I have to cut off. I have to make sure I cut that off and turn the ruler again, and we would simply cut down the rest of the way, however many of these we need. So now when we open these up, right sides together, we have a matching set. To cut the peak part, these don't have to be right sides together because they're all the same. But again, we want to look at our bias triangle. We need to be able to read Nifty Notions, place it on the fabric. Again, I know this sounds repetitive, but it's very important. Line up the 4.5-inch on the bottom and the blunt tip at the top, and we're just going to cut and cut. This is waist, or you can repurpose it as one of these if you cut it a little wider. We're going to turn our ruler over again. This time the blunt tip is at the bottom, the 4.5-inch line is at the top, and we cut, and we just keep on cutting down the length of the strip. So I want to show you how the sewing goes with these. We have this bias triangle and this half rectangle, and they're going to go together like this. So as we take this to the sewing machine, we're going to put right sides together here and like this. And you will see down here, this little tip that you cut off has to be on the straight line of this bottom of our triangle. This has to go up along the edge, and if we turn this over, we'll see that the top, which is your 1/4-inch seam allowance, hangs off the top. So as we go to our sewing machine, let me get this. We're going to start sewing here and go up to the top, and we're going to have something like this. So I did a different color of thread in here so that you can see. So I started sewing here, and where we cut this off is the 1/4-inch seam allowance, and we go right up to the top. And then we're going to finger press this open So then when it's time to add this piece, you see we have this little tip hanging out the top. We need to place this tip right on top of that. And once again, this has to match over here. Our little cutoff piece has to match the bottom edge. And when we start sewing here, we're going to start at this top and move on down to the bottom. And what will result is a perfect triangle here. And this, once in a while, you might find if you don't do this, you might have one that's hanging out the top and then you don't have a nice square thing. So if you do this, you can do it. You can sew them without pins. If you cut it right, you will sew it right. So that is pretty exciting. So what I've done here is made this cute little stargazing table topper, or you could use it as a wall hanging. Everything in here is 4.5-inch pieces. As you can see here, what we're going to do out of our blue or our dark fabric, whatever, is we're going to cut 4 corner squares and then 1 center square, and you can match the star if you want, or you can do something different. So this makes 1 block. This is not hard to do. This, when it comes to sewing it together, it's just like sewing together a 9-patch. And again, remember, everything is 4.5 inches here, our borders. If we use our half square triangle ruler that you learned about in number 1 in our first quilting quickie, we can put these half square triangles in the center and on the corners for this kind of a diagonal type of a look. Now underneath here I want to show you another one, a different variation of this very same thing. This is really simple. This one, you can do whatever you would like. This is a little more complicated. We used 1 3/4 inch strips with a center, went around the outsides here and here. So there are tons of variations that you can use. I simply went down the edge with this and I did the center, did the mitered edges on the outsides. For this one, we have fat quarter packs. We use this with fat quarters. I'm going to show you one little thing here that I did. You're going to need a little bit more of one fabric because I ran out of the snowman out of the fat quarters. So you're going to need a little bit more, but we have these red and white fat quarters. You can do it out of anything you absolutely want to. Very fun, very quick, looks difficult, and yes, you can do it. I guarantee you. So that's it for today on Monday Morning Quickies. If you would like the pattern for this one, sign up for our email, www.pnqs.net. The links will all be listed below, and on our weekly email, this will be posted for you to enjoy as well. So thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next Monday.